specifically language teaching. And this is very well justified that I'm presenting it today because last week on Friday, Ghazal Bayat delivered a wonderful presentation on AI in ELT, especially ChatGPT, which was so useful. I'm not going to talk too much about AI today. I'm going to talk about the byproducts of artificial intelligence and technology in education, which are flipped learning and autonomy. And then we will see how much of what I'm sharing with you today is practical and applicable to our teaching in Iranzamin and elsewhere, right? It could be even in other language schools or even university context, school context, or anything that we can apply this to. So in today's session, we are looking at some of the issues in the current practice. So there are issues. I mean, I call this presentation a problem addressing kind of session. So there are problems, right? And we are hoping to address these problems and come up with some solutions to yet improve our practice of teaching English. And IZ, being one of the pioneer language schools in Iran, is always proud of its new ideas and thoughts and techniques and everything. So I thought we can talk about flipped learning and autonomous learners in today's session and see how Ghazal Bayat's session on AI, artificial intelligence, can be actually domesticated or used to deliver flipped learning and autonomous learners in Iranzamin. Okay, so very briefly on the evolution of technology in education, I started teaching using cassette recorders. As you can see, the furthest left one in red is a cassette player that some of you do not even know what it is, because when you were born, these were out of date. But for my generation, that's revealing my age, but doesn't matter really. We started with cassette recorders. We used to carry these cassette recorders to the classroom. Then came VHR or VHSR videos that we used to have in classes, and we were so proud if we had one of those video recording machines and devices. Then we had CDs, and some people were thinking these are the cutting edge and most advanced, actually, forms of technology in education. Then we had USB drives and flash memories. Then internet connection, I don't know, and all these things related to internet arrived. And now we are at the age of artificial intelligence, and it's more than a revolution, my friends. I mean, every day I'm hearing new things about artificial intelligences, and how they are going to impact our lives, hopefully in positive ways, but maybe also in negative ways that Ghazal Bayat already talked about, and I'm not going to bore you anymore. So I think I talked for like 5 minutes non-stop, but now I'm going to stop for a while, take some breath, and want you to look at these two photos and think, and how these two photos compare and contrast. In what ways are these two photos different? Maybe one of you wants to unmute themselves and talk to us about these two photos. Anyone?
May I?
Is that Hasti?
Yes.
Hasti, yes. Please speak a
Uh,
bit louder.
sure. Is that okay?
Uh, yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, sure. So I suppose the first picture on left, it's like the traditional way of teaching. Like there is this monologue of the teacher who's just talking and students are just listening, and there's no cooperation between students and the teacher. But then let's say the next picture is showing these happy faces, these people who are having group work or maybe pair works, and they're using also their let's say devices. Um, And yeah, so I really much prefer, I mean, the right picture rather than the left
Yeah,
one.
absolutely right, Hasti. Thank you so much for
Most welcome.
responding. Yes, to the left, as Hasti says, that's a picture of a traditional classroom. I mean, and we are all familiar with such classrooms at schools or universities, even maybe in language schools we used to go to. And even sometimes this resonates with my way of teaching in a lot of my class in my life. The one to the right, however, uh, is a different classroom. It's a different sitting arrangement. It's a different way of addressing learning and teaching and education. And I think we can talk about these photos for hours. And I want you to keep referring to these two images in your professional careers and decide whether your classes are more like the one to the left or more like the one to the right. And in our presentation, in our session today, I think it is very well justified if we make a lot of references to these two photos. About current issues in our practice of education, in specifically in Iran, in language learning, could you possibly go to menti.com on your mobile phones or other devices that you have next to you? So you go to menti.com, enter this code, and then send a word or two or three, I think, maximum is three, about problems of language learning these days, or in your observation of teaching English or even learning English in the past, what big problems do you think there are for students, mostly for students and also for teachers, also for teachers? So you can either scan the QR code or just go to menti.com and enter that code there. And I think I can go to Menti and see if you guys have sent anything yet. Passive vocabularies. Okay. Okay. Any other grammar mistakes? Okay, wonderful ideas, but will you please think of some macro issues? I mean, you're going to very small details, which is great, but maybe it would be the best if for now we can think of macro issues, big issues. But yeah, I mean, of course, these two are problems. Passive vocabularies, grammar mistakes. Any other things? Okay. A lack of time, tedious lesson plans, less autonomy. Ha, I love the one who wrote less autonomy because that's kind of paving the way for my session. Oh, yes. Less autonomy. Yes. Um, okay. One or two, sorry, 30 seconds, and then we can move on to the rest of my session. Tedious lesson plans, lack of material, lack of material. Okay. Grammar mistakes, tedious lessons, lack of motivation. All right. Wonderful. I'm so happy because, like all these problems that you've mentioned, they're somehow connected to our session today about flipped learning and autonomous learners. Okay, and the last 10 seconds, and we will move on to the rest of my session. Right. Okay, let's move on, shall we? Yeah, let's move on. Okay. One of the macro issues in learning a language is low retention rate. Okay, regardless of how much you try, or regardless of how much are the students trying, the outcome is far from expected or perfection. Of course, we're not after perfection, but far from our expectations, students' expectations, teachers' expectations, parents' expectations. So we call it low retention rate. And a lot of people complain about this, actually. They say, we've attended lots of courses, yet we are unable to use English in the best way possible. And this leads us to the forgetting curve, which is referred to um, in psychology and also in education. Um, as you can see here on this slide, horizontal you have days, vertical you have retention rate. So 100% retention rate goes to near, I don't know, 10% in almost 7 days. And this is called forgetting curve, which is a production of Ebbinghaus or Ebbinghaus, maybe. I've got a question for you here. Research by him, by Hermann Ebbinghaus, in the late 19th century revealed that people forget up to what percent of newly learned information within the first day and continue to forget at a rapid rate over time without reinforcement. If there's no reinforcement, this is how much you forget within the first 24 hours or within the first day. Type in the chat box for me. Is it 20%, 30%, or 50%? Uh, somebody said 50%, who's a guest. And
Uh,
Aina
Sorry,
says
that guess is me. I'm
oh,
using
Mariam, is that you?
device. Yeah, I
Okay,
can hear
Mariam
you.
says 50%.
Yeah.
Aina says 35. Fatima says 35. Purya 35 is a 30. Hasti 50. Hasti, why so pessimistic? Pardis 50, Solmaz 40. Okay, all right. Amin 35, Ghazal 30. Hasti says don't know. Oh yeah. Shaqaiq, maybe he's going with, okay, 30. Okay, thank you. Okay, 50. Yes. And it's so sad and tragic for me to know that everything I'm presenting today will be forgotten. Like 50% of what I'm presenting today will be forgotten in one day from now if there's no reinforcement. And that's true of almost all of us, okay? So we talk a lot in the classroom, yes. But how much of that is still remembered after a few days? It's a tragic low percentage. Another piece of data I'm sharing with you, in lecture-based learning, which was the first picture in my slides I showed you and Hasti talked about, studies have shown that retention rates from lectures alone can be as low as 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 30 to 40% after 24 hours. And this means that the vast majority of information presented in lectures is forgotten shortly after. So I'm going to go and look at the chat box. So either go with 5 to 10, 10 to 20%, 30 to 40%. Lecture-based learning. So when somebody talks, when a teacher talks and the students listen, how much of that do you think is retained in 24 hours? Faiza goes with 5 to 10. Fatima goes 10 to 20. Mariam goes 10 to 20. 5 to 10. Oh, رقیه مهاجریان پوریا گفت 5 to 10. Wow. That's so alarming. Actually, they are right. Lecture-based learning retention rate is 5 to 10% after 24 hours. And sorry, I do not have any references for these actually sentences and statements, but you can always go and search online and find lots of resources which cite these pieces of information. So lecture-based learning, 5 to 10%. Okay, I have another activity for you. I'm going to give you 1 minute. Match each activity with the retention rate you think it corresponds to. We know about lecture-based teaching. We know that it's 5 to 10%. So if you choose 5% for lecture, you're absolutely right. Or even 10%, again, you're right. How about the others? I'm going to give you 1 minute. And maybe this time, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves and talk to us about the retention rates of these activities. Any volunteers? Okay, last 10 seconds, and I need at least a volunteer or maybe two. Okay. Anyone there? Hello?
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
Mariam, is that you?
Yes, yes.
Please.
I'm not sure, but I'm think for the practice by doing, I'm going to give the highest amount, I mean the highest number, and actually the least number can be the 5 for teach others limited use of L2. But about the others, for reading, I can assume 75. For audio and visual, 30, and for lecture, 10, and demonstration can be the 20. But it's just guessing.
Mariam, I agree with you on most of them, but except one. That teach others, that's not a teacher teaching others, that's students teaching each other.
Ah, so then student teaching others.
A student teaching other students.
Good, yeah. I thought that the teacher
No,
teaches the student.
no, it's the students teaching each other. And this is Mariam. This is what it is like.
So again, practice by doing can be.
You were right about almost all of them, and then you misunderstood teach others, but that's also students teaching each other. And then, I mean, when I looked at this kind of data source, I thought more than 50% of my teaching in my life went to nothing. More than 50%. If I'm very lucky, maybe about 50% went to something. If I'm not a very lucky one, maybe 80% of what I thought was teaching was actually wasting students' time and just, doing nothing, right? Because we can see here that when you teach, you lecture, not teach. When you lecture and they listen to you, the retention rate is 5%. But when the students teach each other, they practice by doing, they demonstrate. Of course, the top two ones are when they teach each other and when they practice by doing. These are the best activities in terms of retention rate. Okay, wonderful. So with all these problems, with all these tragedies in education, there seems to be a viable solution, maybe. We are not sure yet. And that's integration of technology in education. We think um, technology can save education. Can, not it will. Because according to some scholars like Noam Chomsky, uh, it's going to mark even the end of education. Noam Chomsky for, I think, about ChatGPT or AI, he specifically says that it's going to mark the end of education. But we don't have to agree with him. Uh, I mean, I think, inshallah umrish tulani, but I think we will outlive him and we will see the future and we will see whether he was right or he was not. Okay. Hopefully, education and technology will lead to efficiency. And this is our hope. This is maybe Ghazal Bayat thinks like Noam Chomsky, or she thinks quite the opposite of Noam Chomsky. But let's see what happens in the future. But one thing that we can do today is we can say that technology in education or educational technology can pave the way, at least we can say that for sure, for flipped learning and blended learning. When we talk about flipped learning and blended learning, uh, we need to embrace some level of technology. I think without technology, we can't even talk about blended learning. Flipped learning is a bit different. I mean, some of you might argue that we can use flipped learning without technology. And I might say, yes, you're right. But technology is going to facilitate flipped learning. But blended learning, of course, as the name suggests, we've got to have technology, and hopefully flipped learning and blended learning after the integration of technology will give us more autonomy of our learners. And these autonomous learners and this new framework is going to lead to higher learning efficiency. It's like when you have a dream, right? I have a dream, and maybe these dreams will come true. And I am one of those who are positive about the future of AI and technology in education. I think we are going to have more autonomous learners. For some time, we may have a lot of cheating, a lot of going around education and using shortcuts and a lot of plagiarism. But I think eventually we are going to drive safe and we are going to use technology for the benefit of humanity and education. So this is the model. This is my model. Some of you might have seen. I shared this on my social media. It's a very simple model, nothing complicated. But I think this kind of frames the use of technology in education in a meaningful way and in a very straightforward manner. That technology and education can lead us to flipped learning and blended learning, and flipped learning and blended learning will uh, actually lead to more autonomy of learners, and hopefully the efficiency of students learning will not be 5%, will be at least 50% or even more. Okay. Here comes flipped learning. Wow, so much of an introduction just to bring us to flipped learning. So will you please type in the chat box, yes, if you know about flipped learning, no, if you don't know about flipped learning, maybe if you know somewhat about flipped learning, but not 100%. So yes, you know confidently what flipped learning is. No, you don't know much about it. Maybe you know some things about. Hasti knows, Amin doesn't, Mariam knows about flipped learning, Solmaz knows, Mariam, the guest is someone else because I can see a yes under your name and a yes under
No,
the
sorry.
guest.
I type in both devices. That's my bad. Sorry. I can hear you from my cell phone and I can see the your
Okay.
slides on the tablet. Sorry.
That's okay. Ghazali, thank you so much for your very
No big deal.
diplomatic and polite response and considerate response, I should say. Yes, but you need to know more. Wow. Pardis, maybe. Aynaz, no, maybe a little. Uh, Yalda says yes. Faiza, maybe. Fatima, maybe. Solmaz is laughing. Solmaz already said yes. Okay, need to know more. Thank you so much, Yalda. Thank you so much for your heartwarming and supportive statement. So, what is flipped learning? Actually, when you flip it, I have a definition we can use, and you fill in the blanks for me. Who is gonna fill in the blanks for me? Unmute yourself and tell me. I mean, give us the missing words. So, a flipped classroom is a type of blended learning where students are introduced to content at and practice working through it at. This is the what of the more common practice? Ghazala, do you want to unmute yourself and say?
Sure. I'll try.
Yeah.
Classroom is a type of blended learning where students are introduced to content in the classroom, I guess, and
Uh-huh.
practice working through it at home.
Okay.
Is that a more common practice of reducing? This is the okay. I don't understand this one.
Okay.
Or
Thank you.
be more common. I'm not sure. But I think what I do is I let my students know different kind of materials, and I ask them to go through material at home all by
Okay.
themselves. But I'm not sure yet. Thank
It was
you. And
very,
number three, I'm not sure what
Ghazala,
that is.
Ghazala, it was so helpful, except that I should say, reverse what Ghazala said and you will get the right answer.
Oh, really? Introduced to the content at home, practice working it. Oh,
Yes.
okay. And I think okay.
Yeah, because it's the reverse of the common practice. Ghazala, for centuries, the departure point of a teaching of a lesson was the classroom, the first introduction to a lesson. And then students like go home and study. This is traditional. The flipped classroom is the reverse of that. So seeing the content is at home, practice it in the classroom. This is flipped classroom, right? And this image can further illustrate what happens in a flipped classroom. So you see, before classroom, students prepare to participate in class activities. During class, students practice applying key concepts with feedback. Again, after class, they check their understanding and extend their learning. Uh, so the gray area is outside the classroom. The orange area is the classroom area. But you can see the starting point is before classroom, maybe at home, maybe at the library, anywhere but outside the classroom, before. What matters here is the time, not place. So this is a very simple, actually, introduction of flipped classroom. And again, some might argue that yes, like we were told that in like regarding the four skills of a language, if you like look at the receptive skills or use the receptive skills outside the classroom or before the classroom, listening and speaking, sorry, listening and reading, and then do more productive skills in the classroom of speaking and writing, then you can say that this is a flipped classroom. To some extent, yes, this is right. I mean, I'm not going to contradict this model or negate this model and say this is wrong, but it's not always the case. Sometimes to add more variety to your flipped classroom, you may even reverse this one. You may do more of reading and listening in the classroom and do more of, like, I don't know, speaking and recording, I don't know, writing things outside the classroom. Okay, but the one I'm introducing now is a bit more, I can say, crafted, I can say maybe, more specific, flipped classroom or flipped learning model. So what happens, and I'm suggesting this one, I'm proposing this one, and of course you will need a lot of thinking about this. This sounds like a revolution, and this cannot happen overnight. This can happen over weeks, months, years, maybe, because a lot of infrastructure is needed, a lot of preparation is required. You cannot just decide to go flipped from tomorrow. A lot of other things should change for you to be able to embrace flipped classroom. But maybe the starting point is recorded lessons, so that you do not teach in the classroom every time repeatedly. For example, it's touchstone 1, lesson 1, it's the reading, it's, I don't know, the grammar, it's the listening, and every time you are doing the same thing over and over for different students. What if we recorded you teaching these lessons and then shared these with the students to go and watch online, or listen to, or read or study asynchronously before you started teaching those lessons? They have a recorded video of, like, Mr. Ibrahimi teaching a lesson, or Sara Shadman or Fatima Shafi'i. They have like produced videos of themselves teaching these lessons, and then students buy the material, take it home, watch it, study it, use it. Then when they come to the classroom, they say, okay, yeah, I watched your teaching on, like, grammar, vocabulary, anything, asynchronously. And then the next stage, after you produce the material, the content, you just don't give it to the students and then say, okay, go and watch it or go and study, because chances are they won't. So you need to do something about it. You need to use your authority and rapport and harness your students' curiosity to go and do it. Otherwise, they may not. And please don't let flipped learning model fail just because your students are not doing it. You are there. You are a caring teacher. You are a responsible teacher. And hopefully, you have your own ways of harnessing your students' curiosity to go and do the things they are supposed to, so that they study at home. They watch the video at home. They study the text at home. They listen to your explanations on grammar at home before they come to the classroom. So when they come to the classroom, you do not interfere as of yet, right? You do not interfere, you do not intervene yet. And we can allow the students to teach the others. If you remember from that model, the retention rate model, one of the highest, maybe the highest retention rate was for teaching others. And classroom mediation is all about that. So in the classroom, student B is teaching student B, student C is teaching student D. They have group work, they have pair work. And then you are monitoring them. And then hopefully this is going to lead to inquiry-based learning. And inquiry-based learning, you know, IBL or IBT, inquiry-based teaching, is one of the strongest approaches. Your students will come to you with their questions and problems. And that's a holy moment in education when they come to you and they have questions. Oh, teacher, we were discussing this grammar problem and we have disagreement. Oh, teacher, we were reading this text and we have certain questions. Oh, teacher, we have questions about the pronunciation of these words, or anything that you can think of. And throughout this journey, you are monitoring, you are facilitating, you are watching, you are helping, you are scaffolding, and you are using your authority and care to make sure that your students are on the right track, they're listening to you, and they're doing the right thing. So this is the flipped learning model, and this is the heart of our session today, right? That introduction was paving the way for the establishment of this model. And like I said, this is nothing that we can substitute for our old model in a matter of few days or weeks. This will take time. But I think the future of education has to embrace flipped learning in some ways. I have some more explanations here regarding each stage. So, for example, when you are recording the lessons, the school should help you. Iranzamin may decide to produce these videos. We have to make decisions later, right? And it will take time. And then for harnessing curiosity, we will use different ways, which I'm going to share some of them now. I can share some of these ways to maximize your students' interest today. Home study, this needs your authority. And of course, portfolio assessment will really help us make sure that students are doing what they are supposed to do outside the classroom. In the classroom with mediation, maximum pair work, maximum group work, maximum inquiry-based learning and helping students, because it's inquiry-based learning, it's IBL, it's IBT. Flipped learning is IBT, okay? How to harness a student's curiosity. For example, if there's a unit we are teaching, I'd show this image to my students. This is the unit opener image of a unit. I'd show this image to my students and say, do you think this is a real image? What is happening there? What is that bird doing on this guy's head? And this guy is playing the piano while a bird is sitting on its head. Is it an AI generated photo or is it a real photo, you think? By the way, if you think it's a real photo, unmute yourself and say it's real. No one thinks it's a real photo? Huh? Really? Okay. No one said it's a real photo, huh? Ghazali, no, the students do not choose the material. I explained that the material will be produced by the teacher or by the school, and then that's going to give into the student. So they have the material, they have the recorded material, they've got the prepared material. Like the teachers, like talking to the camera. So there's a video of lesson 2 or lesson 3 recorded by Mariam Ghasemlu, and then it's given to students to go and watch, so that in the classroom, instead of teaching the lesson, we deal with the students' problems. What is the bird doing there? I get it now. Okay. Aynaz is typing. Okay. We have very little time left, so this is a real photo, my friends. This is not an AI generated photo. So, and then raising your students' interest or curiosity. And this question, I created this question from a text in one of the chapters of the book. So If I want my students to go and read the text, maybe I can raise some questions, some interesting questions. And I'm asking you now, can you type in the chat box for me A, B, C, D? In terms of biology, what are the closest animals to human beings? Frogs, apes, dolphins, or mice? I want to see the chat box. I want to see some wrong answers from you. Let's see. Anyone? Come on. Mice. Yalda says mice. Solma says B, apes. Hasti says dolphins. Mariam goes mice. Fatima goes dolphins. Hannana goes dolphins. Ghazal goes apes. Puria goes apes. I was waiting for Puria's answer, for Mr. Ibrahim's answer, because like me, he has an interest in animals and in the environment. So I just wanted to know what he will say, and he's absolutely right. It's apes. Closest to human beings are apes. And of course, with your students, you wouldn't reveal the answer. Raise the question, let them just hang in the balance and go find the answer. Okay, now we know that the closest to animals are apes. What percentage of our DNA do we share with chimpanzees? 48%, 66%, 84%, 96%. Pardis, Solmaz, Fa is it 98? We don't even have 98. Okay. Aynas goes 66. Hannana was also 66. Fatima 84. Yalda goes with 84. Faiza close to 96. Puria 90. Puria 98 again. It's 96. Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay.
Now the percentages are wrong.
Yes, 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 you can say that. You can say
Sorry.
that. But the answer is D, 96%. Haha. Isn't that interesting? We share 96% of our DNA with chimpanzees. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So you can share photos, you can share questions, you can share, you can fill in the blanks in a conversation like this and get them to guess the words. And then hopefully our students will go and find. Huh. I just remembered that I had prepared a video to show you, but it's the last 2 minutes of the session. Anyways, I'm going to show it to you. Okay. She's my co-presenter. She couldn't make it to the session, so she sent this video to us. Okay. Look, as you can see, I have lots of more slides to cover, but as I promised to keep it to 1 hour, I'm just gonna go to the last few pages, the last 2 pages maybe. There's a lot we can say about flipped learning and autonomy, but change doesn't happen overnight. It starts with the desire, then one small step in the right direction. And Iranzamin is famous for its desires and having steps in the right direction, or I'm gonna wrap up my presentation looking at John Dewey, my most admired scholar of all times, when he says, when we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. So the way we were taught in the past, or the way we learn to teach, does not justify how we are going to teach in the future. Okay, so we should think of more effective ways and more efficient ways of teaching our students, and